Welcome everyone to Tea and Stories. My Tea and Stories are really special because I'm going to be doing them most of the time with my sister, Irma Hammond Gardner, storytelling Irma.
Hi,
And
everybody. I'm so pleased to be here with my sister because we have some stories to tell you.
yes, we do. Now we decided to start off our new year of Tea and Stories with stories about mothers and daughters, especially stories about tea. Um, Tea and Stories, again, is brought to you by Mama Carla's Paparazzi. Yay!
Yay!
Um, and as things go along, we'll see a little bit more jewelry, and we'll talk about that too. But these are some of my jewelry. What do you think, sis?
I think that that's really nice. I can't wait till mine. Now, these came from you, but I got on two different ones. I like variety.
Yeah, and a little jewelry always makes you feel fancy when you're not
It
feeling like
does. It really does, especially during these times of COVID when you're in the house and nobody sees you except Zoom. So then when you have a Zoom opportunity, you dress up, at least from the top up, you
it.
know. Now, we
Yeah,
don't care about what's on the bottom unless you
yeah.
stand up.
You could be
But
a little raggedy there, but
you
from the
know,
top up, you
head
gotta
wrap
look
and
cute.
everything. Yes.
Our tea and stories today are really going around tea culture and what happens between people during tea culture. Let's talk, Irma, why don't you get started?
Okay, I'll start. My story is about something that most young women go through. Now, I grew up in a small town on the eastern shore of Maryland. And I couldn't wait to get to the seventh grade because when you got to be in the seventh grade, you were thought of as a young lady. A lot of things changed. It meant that, I didn't have to be with the little girls anymore. And I was going to junior high school. And I'd heard so much about the things you could do. And I wanted to experience them all. For example, in the music class, you got to listen to an opera, Porgy and Bess. Now it had some bad words in it, so little kids couldn't listen to that. But in the seventh grade, you could do that. In the seventh grade, you got to be around more children. My school was named Robert Russia Moton Junior Senior High. Didn't have but 500 people in the whole place, but I thought it was going to the big school. And it was a wonderful, wonderful thing for me. Now, you also got to go to home economics, where one half year you did sewing and the other half you did cooking. And you got to perform or compete in national competitions with New Homemakers of America. And that interested me so much. But one of the things that most people don't know is in the gym class, we had health class. And in that health class, there was a special unit for girls, for young women. It was like a rites of passage. You got this little booklet that said confidentially yours, put out by the Midol Company. That should have told you something. You got your whole little kit for starting to be a young lady. That means you got your cycle, or it was coming soon. They gave you sanitary pads. They gave you a sanitary belt because that was a long time ago before the new modern methods came out. And they gave you instructions on what to do and how you would feel and how you should carry yourself and all of that. Well, what they didn't tell me was that every menstrual cycle was not a happy time. When I got mine, I was both excited and nervous, and I was all right because I knew everything ahead of time. The boys didn't know about this. This was just girl stuff, women. I was becoming a young woman like my mom and like my aunts. Well, what happened was, along with that cycle came cramps and nausea. I would get terrible cramps. I'd be in so much pain that I didn't know what to do. And I was the kind of child that didn't like to be sick and stay home from school because I was active. I was on the cheering squad. I was a little cheerleader. Yes, yes. We just had basketball. We didn't have football. I was in the marching band. Played the clarinet, sometimes the saxophone. I loved doing these kind of things. I loved all the activities. I was on the honor roll. So I didn't like to miss school. But I would be so sick sometimes that I shouldn't have drugged myself to school. One day I went to school and I was in such pain, I had to go to the nurse. The nurse, that school it was like going to a private school because you knew all your teachers. It was segregated. So I feel like I went to a private school, all black. And the nurse was a friend of my family's. And she said, honey, I'm calling your mom and you're going home. You're not going to suffer through this. You're in such misery. And I was. Oh, I had cramps and I was shivering and I was getting ready to throw up. So my mom came and got me. And we went home. And she kind of fluffed up my room and made it fresh. I think she even put some flowers in there and opened it for some sunshine and told me to just go and rest. So I laid down. She got me a heating pad and put it on my stomach. That felt so good. And she was talking to me a little bit. And then she said, wait a minute, I'll be back. She went back and came back in a little while with a tray and 2 teacups and some lemon and sugar. And she made me a cup of tea and she made herself a cup of tea. And she said, start sipping on this tea. Now, I don't know what was in that tea, but it tastes so good. And it felt so good going down, you know. And every time I would have a bad cramp, she would just hold my hand. And she said, just squeeze it. And I squeezed my mother's hand. That felt so good. She would talk to me. She was telling me about things from her childhood, things that went on. And I was listening, and even we started laughing a little bit. But she would hold my hand, and we would sip. Oh, let me sip my tea. I got my favorite cup here. And she would sip her tea. To you, sister. Those memories. It tasted just so good, like it was a special tea from heaven or something. Really good. And we would laugh and we would talk. And after a while, I felt my eyes getting heavy. And she said, go ahead and rest, baby. Go ahead and rest. And I went to sleep. And when I woke up, I felt so much better. Now, I don't know whether it was the tea, whether it was the talk, or was it the tenderness. But I often think about how my mother could soothe my cramps when no Midol tablets could, when no aspirins, or I don't even think they had Tylenol back then. I don't know. But nobody could soothe my cramps like the tea. No tea for the fever? That's all right. I need tea, tenderness, and talk to get rid of the pain. And that was a long time ago, but I'll always remember tea. And I became a tea person. I always have tea for everything, which reminded me of your story, sister.
Oh, yes, indeed. It's so funny because my mother did something similar, but with mommy, she had 5 daughters. Now,
Wow.
one having 5 girls in the household, you have a house full of girls, there are certain things that just happen to you. And one of them was your cycle coming on. But the real terrible thing that I thought of is I had friends, and later on when I worked in elementary school, children who would start their cycles and absolutely terrified. Ooh. Ooh. You okay, sis?
No, there's some smoke. That all. Do this over here. We might have to do this over. We open a window.
You okay, sis?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead and tell your story. Like, stop the recording. Oh, man.